Elaboration Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for Public Officials and Employees. Certainly. Let's elaborate further on each section of the outline. Introduction. A background and purpose of the law. Republic Act Number 6713, also known as the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for Public Officials and Employees, was enacted to promote a culture of integrity, transparency, and accountability in public service. It addresses the need to combat corruption, prevent conflicts of interest, and uphold ethical standards among those holding positions of authority and responsibility in government. B. Declaration of Policy. The law begins with a declaration of the state's policy to promote a high standard of ethics and professionalism in public service. It emphasizes the importance of public officials and employees adhering to ethical principles and standards of behavior in the performance of their duties. 2. Code of Conduct. A. Ethical Principles for Public Officials and Employees. RA 6713 establishes a code of conduct that outlines the ethical principles and standards of behavior expected of public officials and employees. These principles include honesty, integrity, impartiality, and responsiveness to the needs of the public. Public servants are expected to act with integrity, avoid conflicts of interest, and prioritize the public interest in their decision-making. B. Standards of behavior and integrity. The Code of Conduct sets forth specific standards of behavior and integrity that public officials and employees must adhere to. This includes refraining from engaging in corrupt practices, using public office for personal gain, and disclosing confidential information acquired in the course of their duties. 3. Prohibited Acts. A. Enumerated acts prohibited for public officials and employees. RA 6713 enumerates specific acts that are prohibited for public officials and employees. These include soliciting or accepting gifts, favors, loans, or benefits that may influence the performance of their official duties, engaging in business transactions that conflict with their official functions, and disclosing confidential information acquired in the course of their duties for personal gain. B. Prevention of conflicts of interest and corruption. The law aims to prevent conflicts of interest and corruption among public officials and employees by prohibiting certain acts and establishing clear standards of conduct. By prohibiting the acceptance of gifts or benefits that may compromise their independence or impartiality, the law helps ensure that public servants prioritize the public interest over personal gain. Continued IV. Disclosure of assets, liabilities, and net worth. SALN. A requirement for annual filing of SALN. Republic Act Number 6713 mandates public officials and employees to file a statement of assets, liabilities, and net worth SALN annually. This requirement aims to promote transparency and accountability by providing the public with information about the financial interests of public officials. The SALN includes details about assets, liabilities, net worth, and business interests, allowing for scrutiny of potential conflicts of interest or illicit enrichment. B. Purpose and importance of SALN. The SALN serves as a tool for detecting and preventing corruption, conflicts of interest, and illicit enrichment among public officials and employees. By requiring the annual disclosure of financial interests, the law promotes transparency and accountability in government service and helps deter unethical behavior. See Transparency and Accountability Measures. The filing of SALNs is a key transparency and accountability measure in the Philippines. It allows the public, media, and oversight agencies to monitor the financial interests of public officials and hold them accountable for any discrepancies or irregularities in their declarations. Failure to accurately disclose assets and liabilities in the SALN may result in administrative sanctions or other disciplinary measures. B. Penalties for violations. A. Administrative sanctions for non-compliance. Republic Act Number 6713 provides for administrative sanctions for violations of its provisions. Public officials and employees who fail to comply with the Code of Conduct or engage in prohibited acts may face disciplinary action, including suspension, removal from office, or other appropriate penalties. B. Suspension, removal from office, or other disciplinary measures. The severity of the penalties imposed for violations of RA 6713 depends on the gravity of the offense and the discretion of the disciplinary authority. Serious breaches of ethics or integrity may warrant removal from office, while less serious infractions may result in suspension or other disciplinary measures. C. Upholding accountability and deterrence. The imposition of penalties for violations of RA 6713 is essential for upholding accountability and deterrence in public service. By holding public officials and employees accountable for their actions and decisions, the law helps maintain public trust in government institutions and promotes ethical conduct among those in positions of authority and responsibility. 6. Ombudsman Oversight. A role of the Office of the Ombudsman. The Office of the Ombudsman is tasked with enforcing the provisions of Republic Act Number 6713 and investigating complaints of violations by public officials and employees. As the primary anti-corruption agency in the Philippines, the Ombudsman plays a crucial role in ensuring accountability and integrity in public service. B. Enforcement of the provisions of RA 6713. The Ombudsman has the authority to investigate complaints, conduct administrative proceedings, and impose sanctions for violations of the Code of Conduct and ethical standards for public officials and employees. Through its investigative and prosecutorial powers, the Ombudsman works to hold erring public officials accountable and promote ethical governance. See Investigation of Complaints and Allegations. The Office of the Ombudsman investigates complaints and allegations of misconduct, corruption, or violations of RA 6713 by public officials and employees. It conducts thorough inquiries, gathers evidence, and takes appropriate action to address wrongdoing and uphold the integrity of public service. 7. Implementation and compliance. A mechanisms for implementation at the national and local levels. Republic Act Number 6713 provides for the implementation of its provisions at both the national and local levels of government. National government agencies, local government units, and other public bodies are responsible for ensuring compliance with the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for public officials and employees. B. Compliance monitoring and reporting. Oversight agencies, such as the Office of the Ombudsman and the Civil Service Commission, monitor compliance with RA 6713 and investigate reports of violations. They conduct audits, inspections, and reviews to ensure that public officials and employees adhere to ethical standards and fulfill their obligations under the law. C. Promotion of ethical governance culture. Republic Act No. 6713 promotes a culture of ethical governance by setting clear standards of conduct, providing mechanisms for accountability, and fostering transparency in public service. By upholding integrity, transparency, and accountability, the law contributes to building public trust in government institutions and enhancing the quality of governance in the Philippines. 8. Conclusion. A. Importance of RA 6713 in promoting ethical governance. Republic Act No. 6713 plays a crucial role in promoting ethical governance, transparency, and accountability in the Philippines. By establishing ethical standards, prohibiting corrupt practices, and providing mechanisms for enforcement, the law helps maintain public trust in government institutions and uphold the integrity of public service. B. Upholding integrity, transparency, and accountability in public service. RA 6713 underscores the importance of integrity, transparency, and accountability in public service. It emphasizes the duty of public officials and employees to act with honesty, impartiality, and responsiveness to the needs of the public, and to prioritize the common good in their decision-making and actions. C. Role of public officials and employees in building public trust. Public officials and employees play a vital role in building public trust in government institutions. By adhering to ethical standards, fulfilling their duties with integrity and professionalism, and upholding the principles of RA 6713, they contribute to the effective and ethical governance of the Philippines. 9. Judicial review of public officer actions. A. Role of the judiciary. The judiciary plays a vital role in interpreting and enforcing public officer law, ensuring that the actions of public officials comply with constitutional and legal requirements. B. Standards of review. Courts apply different standards of review when assessing the constitutionality or legality of public officer actions, depending on the nature of the issue and the rights involved. These standards may include rational basis review, strict scrutiny, or intermediate scrutiny. See constitutional limits. Public officers are subject to constitutional limitations on their powers and actions, including the protection of fundamental rights, the principle of separation of powers, and the rule of law. X. Emerging issues and developments in public officer law. A. Modern challenges and complexities. Changes in technology, society, and governance pose new challenges for public officer law, such as cybersecurity threats, social media use, and evolving public expectations. B. Legislative reforms and proposals. Lawmakers continually review and revise public officer law to address emerging issues, improve transparency and accountability, and enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of government. See impact of global trends. Global trends, such as globalization, climate change, and international cooperation, influence public officer law and governance practices in the Philippines, requiring policymakers to adapt and respond to new challenges and opportunities. In summary, public officer law in the Philippines governs the qualifications, appointment, duties, accountability, and conduct of public officials. It is grounded in constitutional principles, statutory provisions, and judicial decisions aimed at promoting transparency, accountability, and the rule of law in governance. Understanding these principles and mechanisms is essential for ensuring effective and ethical public administration and upholding the public interest. As new challenges and developments emerge, policymakers and stakeholders must continuously adapt public officer law to address evolving needs and promote good governance in the Philippines. Here's an outline and summary of Republic Act No. 6713. I. Introduction. A. Background and purpose of the law. B. Declaration of policy. 2. Code of conduct. A. Ethical principles for public officials and employees. B. Standards of behavior and integrity. 3. Prohibited acts. A. Enumerated acts prohibited for public officials and employees. B. Prevention of conflicts of interest and corruption. IV. Disclosure of assets, liabilities, and net worth. SALN. A. Requirement for annual filing of SALN. B. Purpose and importance of SALN. C. Transparency and accountability measures. B. Penalties for violations. A. Administrative sanctions for non-compliance. B. Suspension, removal from office, or other disciplinary measures. C. Upholding accountability and deterrence. 6. Ombudsman oversight. A. Role of the Office of the Ombudsman. B. Enforcement of the provisions of RA 6713. C. Investigation of complaints and allegations. 7. Implementation and compliance. A. Mechanisms for implementation at the national and local levels. B. Compliance monitoring and reporting. C. Promotion of ethical governance culture. 8. Conclusion. A. Importance of RA 6713 in promoting ethical governance. B. Upholding integrity, transparency, and accountability in public service. C. Role of public officials and employees in building public trust. Summary. Republic Act No. 6713, also known as the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for Public Officials and Employees, establishes ethical principles and standards of behavior for those serving in government positions. The law aims to promote integrity, transparency, and accountability in public service by prohibiting certain acts, requiring the disclosure of assets and liabilities through the SALN, imposing penalties for violations, and providing oversight through the Office of the Ombudsman. RA 6713 plays a crucial role in fostering public trust in government institutions and upholding the principles of democracy and the rule of law in the Philippines.